matter who you are, where you are, what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed, the light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now.
Hi, and welcome to Whole Soul Mastery's Sounds of Circles Roundtable today. I'm Marie Moeller, and I'm an author, intuitive, and a messenger of integrating into a greater wholeness inside ourselves, which is what Whole Soul Mastery is all about. And I'm here again with Jonathan William. Welcome, Jonathan. And Renee Tainter, who's back again today. And this is it's a unique weaving. We haven't podcasted together before, but I am so excited to journey into an exploration and a conversation, really giving language to some of the energies that people are feeling in the final quarter of 2021. So much has transpired over many decades and in our lives, but more acutely in the last 2 years. And many people would give words or use the language of it's been stressful, it's been challenging, it's been overwhelming. Some people have used those feelings and frequencies that they've been going through, and it's catalyzed them in different ways to let go of things that they felt like they had to do or responsibilities that they had to meet. Some people have been liberated in this time in a way that was unexpected. So I think we have a full spectrum of experience going on the planet right now, because everybody is an accumulation of all the experiences and lessons and skills and things we've gleaned through time. And I will see that as another potential topic that we'll talk about today is time itself, right? Just giving language to how we experience time. What is time? How can time limit us in many ways? And how can we transcend time and find a language that better supports us to do that? So in my life, I've been moving multidimensionally in my conscious awareness for some time now. But I remember back in the beginning of my journey when I was just awakening to this world of a bigger language. And as Renee, we've talked about it, the bigger picture, right? This bigger picture vision. Language goes hand in hand with our experiences. And so if our experiences are growing, our language needs to grow, right? So we need a bigger picture language to match the bigger picture vision that we're summoned into having in these times. And so maybe we want to start there, is just giving language to some of what we each are hearing with people we know, clients we work with, people we connect with about these times. And it's been quite a journey for a lot of people, quite a wild ride. And I think we're still in that ride. We need to be these surfers, but we're calling in these tools. And I'm so grateful you guys have joined me. And I want to explore that a little bit. I want to explore what we get a sense of that people are feeling. And as we round this corner of 2021, we're just about to enter December 2021. And I want to talk about a little bit what you guys are sensing, what you're feeling about that, and maybe and see where that leads us today. Yeah, John. Yeah, would you like?
Thank you. I'd like to jump in. Thank you for having me back. It's a pleasure, and to have this triad here of the three of us is definitely amazing, and I'm grateful that Renee is here as well. I'm experiencing a whole gamut, a whole spectrum of experience just crammed into a short period of time, and it seems like time is compressing upon us and squeezing out these experiences, showing us these spectrums of emotions that are coming up to be cleared. You know, deeply bliss one moment, you know, incredibly anxious another. Those are some of the emotions that we're traversing as we're sort of in this void, this in-between time. It feels like we're between worlds, and I believe we really are, if you really put your finger on it and tap into it. And many people are experiencing that feeling of being in between, and it's a very awkward place to be. But if you have these tools and you have the languages to put it into perspective and to work with the energy, it's definitely a terrain that we can traverse, that we do have help. We have assistance from these spiritual guides. We have assistance from these spiritual animal guides, especially that are coming through the transmissions. Eagle, lion, ox, boar, a bunch of these different animal spirits that are here to help us. And I just want to say that I've been having dreams with a lot of these animal spirits coming through. And I like to see if you guys have been having dreams or seeing visions of different animal spirits coming through to help us.
Wow.
Well, I'd like to echo what you said about experiencing a gamut of emotions and thoughts and revelations and insights, all crammed into a 20-second period of time. And, you know, when these things, when you're conscious, you don't just throw them out, you're aware, because we know we are consciously evolving. And so you want to be aware of those things. And so you talk about language, the new words, my new words for the last couple of years have been neutrality, acceptance, surrender, trust and faith. And those are all things, tools, like you were saying, Jonathan, that, you know, like if you get an anxious feeling, you don't necessarily have to do something about it. You know, I just acknowledge it and look and say, you know, well, that's not mine, or I'm not going to inhabit that. And by that, I mean, if you inhabit a thought, you're giving life to it. And then my experience is that when you give life to a thought, the law of the universe, like attracts like, those other thoughts that support that, because like attracts like, will come flooding in. And next thing you know, you're inhabiting all these things. And so after so many times of not really wanting to experience that, I stop it to take a look at it to see if I want to co-create something with that. And most of the time it's in this time frame, I think, because I believe, you know, I agree with you, Jonathan, we are in between the worlds. And so I think we're getting bits and pieces of both, because then when you can rise above and have that trust and faith, let go, accept, be neutral, disinformation comes, it's completely different and you maybe don't resonate with it, but instead of like freaking out and worrying about it and stressing about it, I just go into neutrality and go into that trust, that energy, that divine love and light that I access through my heart. That just goes, okay, let's just take a deep breath or 10 and just trust the process, trust who you are. That was said in your transmission. Trust who you are. See, that's been a really big one for me because of my recent past. I haven't trusted me, and now I am trusting me because I know my heart. My heart is my foundation, and I know my heart. When there might be a lot of things I don't know, but I know my heart. I know the intentions of my heart. I know the power and light and love of my heart. And that's where I hang out when things go a little wonky, you know. And so those are my words that I've used, and I got some from you too, Marie. The neutrality is a good place to be, where you're not trying to, you know, energize something. You're just remaining in your neutral space, which is the love and light, you know.
Yeah, and I think that takes the attachment and the expectation out of something being in the future, or something being out of your reach, or something that you can't control. When you can step into that neutrality, and the way you do that is through conscious breathing, through you know, identifying with the heart rather than the mind, different ways that you could shift that energy. And speaking about animals, my birds are singing away, their heart's content. And in the next room, they're just.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah. So I think it's a lesson for all of us, like no matter what's going on around us, the emotions, the mental underpinnings, these questionings and things, like we can sing and we can dance with our heart's desire and just let them go, just step out of that expectation or that attachment, feeling like we're identified with those things. But yeah, it's Marie, you want to jump in?
I did. I always feel the animals with me, and people don't see all that's around me, but I have a whole picture wall of my animals and deer that have traveled through my yard and entered my life over the years. And there is such a grounding and a support. And I want to talk about animals and obviously these harbingers that have come through the transmissions, that it's not just me. I know that there are plenty of people who know deeper things, I think, about the lion and the eagle as harbingers, and in the biblical sense. I would have to invite those guests to come in and talk about that more. You guys might know more about that than I do, but I'm a channel and I receive. And this is what the guides have been giving to me, these messengers. But when I tap into lion medicine and I tap into the stealth, like acuity of vision of eagle, right? And those talons of truth that they've brought through the transmission. I mean, not a lot of people think that's just an eagle. It's just a bird, right? And it's one of many, many birds, and birds are birds. And then that's it. When people don't look a couple layers deeper, we're missing the magic. We're missing the deeper support and the way that spirit and this living universe is communicating with us. And it takes time. I didn't have the language of animal medicine. I didn't have the language of animal messages, but as I was growing up as a kid, I was very connected to animals. I just always was. I was very connected to nature. I was very comfortable in nature, and I would spend time in nature. And again, in our modern world, for some people, that is a part of their lives. And for other people, especially if you live in a big city, right? There's a lot of cement and roads and high energy 24/7 and less nature, right? Unless you bring it into your home or you bring it into your consciousness. It's a tool and it's a connection that I think humanity is missing. And I wanted to say two things. For years, because we've just, in the United States anyway, celebrated Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving holiday, which means a lot of things for a lot of people. And it always calls up, the awareness, I think, in most people of like, this is a moment in time when we can think about what we're grateful for, what are our blessings, right? And for years, when my kids were small, I didn't do it this year. I think time is just different right now. But there was a book called Giving Thanks, and it was a Native American story. It was like a prayer, and every page had like a sentence of how some Native Americans would begin their day, like thanking the sun, thanking the earth, thanking the rivers and the water, right? Thanking the animals and the creatures. And it's a whole book. It's, maybe 20 pages or something. But the energy as you move through it, it's like it's thanked and blessed everything that's connected to nature and this earth. And that's just how they begin their day. When you think about our modern lives and our modern language, I don't think we talk like that so much anymore, right? We don't even necessarily even know which way our houses are built and oriented, right? Are we oriented to the rising sun, or are our backs to it, right? We don't even think about these things because it's not been part of our awareness. And for a lot of us, it's not been part of our education. It's not been part of our families or communities. It's just not part of a lot of people's experience until you have some kind of catalyzing experience or some kind of event in your life. It could even be a podcast like this, that you bounce into this and you're listening and you're like, well, we'll see what this is about. And you hear people talking about things that you didn't necessarily give words to, but we think it's important because we're talking about it. And maybe that seeds in somebody else's consciousness that this is important too. And so between that book of Giving Thanks, that has been a part of my life and my consciousness, my awareness of starting every day with gratitude. Before I really open my eyes, there's this beautiful space where you're not asleep, you're in the in between. You're not fully asleep and you're not fully awake. You're in this beautiful, impressionable, manifesting or manifestable frequency where you are the creator of your life. You are the creator of your day. And if you want to seed into your day some beautiful energy, that's a great time to do it. And so that giving thanks book comes to consciousness for me. And also the energy of animals, because I live in kind of a foresty area. So I have an abundance of beings and creatures that cross my path all the time. And they're always communicating to me. And before I had the language, that's what I want to say. Before I had the language, I had the connection. I had the connection before I had the language. Some people are rebuilding both. Some people are rebuilding the connection with the natural world, and they're rebuilding a connection with language to grow into a bigger picture of themselves and to grow into a better version of themselves. And that's the squeeze of these times, right? I think we are being called to grow. I think we're being called to expand in all kinds of ways, to release the things that don't serve us anymore. And that's a language. Some people are just hearing that, like, what does that mean? Release things that don't serve me. If people think about that, if there are things in your life that make you uncomfortable, that cause you stress, that bring in those negative emotional states where you don't feel so good, right? A lot of people will then use those feelings as a bridge or a launching pad to distract themselves from it. People on the more spiritual path will notice those things, like you said, Renee, will notice those things, will feel them, will witness them, will be totally aware of them. But we will know ourselves as creators that we're not going to give life to those feelings, those negative emotional states, those triggers that are coming in. And that's where, and I want to hear from you guys, that's where these animal helpers, these animal guides, these messengers come into our experience, because you can look up just about any animal. And I'm so grateful to all the people who've created websites and written books about the messages and the medicine of certain animals. And, with the internet now today, in seconds, you can know some of what they might have been trying to tell you, right? And I have it all the time. I have it all the time. And so just walking out my front door is a spiritual experience, because I meet, it's either a deer or a possum or a raccoon or a chameleon or a ladybug. It doesn't matter. It's always somebody wanting to engage and communicate on this much higher level. And that's where the universal language is in that level of energy. And some people are just beginning to hear that energy is important. Energy in their lives. What is their energy? What is Jonathan's energy right now? What is Renee's energy right now? What is my boss's energy, right? My kids. We start to tune into, like, there's energy all the time. It's like a faucet that never turns off. It's always here. And the more we can uncover the language and connect with beings that can support us and empower us as these spirit guides in pretty tumultuous times. We are in a time of incredible change, and it can either be exciting and riveting and fully engaging, or it can be terrifying for some people. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that the energies of today, you talk about the light summoning everyone back to itself. And in that process is where all these things come up in your mind and your emotions and your awareness and stuff. And I think that same light is unveiling the connection we have with the animals. I'm fully aware of the animals, of every animal, even a gnat. I think I told you the story one time. I was working in my office and there was this tiny little gnat flying in front of my face. And I said, where did you come from? I mean, where's your family? I don't have any food for you. I don't know where, I don't know what you need, but I felt the connection, because when you live in that big picture and you live in your heart, the connection is automatic. And I think that the divine heart, the mother heart, then surrounds all of creation, so that your connection to everything. And I think that's what's happening to people as they realize, wow, these pursuits that I had are not as important as me connecting with the people around me or my family or myself, because you can't really connect with others if you're not connecting to yourself in that way where it empowers you to be that self that's unfolding. And I think that in light of all the things that are happening, it's important. I have to remind myself that I'm not unaffected by what's going on in the collective. There's a lot of stuff going on in the collective. And so I think some of the stuff that might come to you is not yours at all. In fact, remember I pointed out to you, Marie, that great saying. I wish I could give it credit, but it's like, it's either a Buddhist saying or something like that. You can't prevent the birds from flying over your head, but you can prevent them from building a nest in your hair. And so I think that's a good analogy for the thoughts. There's just thoughts everywhere all the time. And if one pops into your head, now you have a choice. And you are, what I realized when you were both talking is that me saying that I had the words like neutrality and surrender and acceptance and allowance is the act of managing the energy inside of you and outside of you, things that are coming to you and things that are within that rise, or things that you want to rise, because you want that peace and harmony. You want it to rise in you. You want to inhabit it and live it. And the only way you can do that is by being aware and being the conscious creator and managing your energy. Because I think that's what being sovereign is. If you come into someone else's presence, you right away understand either you guys can respect each other's sovereignty or someone isn't. And so then you call on different skills, because you're still going to have the acceptance of their sovereignty, even if they don't see it, or if they don't accept yours, then your decisions, your tools are different. It becomes simple when you live in the big picture, but getting from the little picture to the big picture is, like you said, you're uncovering things that don't serve you anymore. Like I started literally going, if a thought came to my head, I'd write it down. I go, you know what? I don't like that thought. That thought, I don't like it. I'm just going to kick it out and replace it with something that's more nurturing. That's when I learned the difference between the conditioned mind, ego mindset. And I started building a divine mindset by adding thoughts. I literally had to write them down and say them over and over till they got rooted in my heart, until I had more options of what thoughts to give life to than just the conditioned mind. But if you just take a person with a conditioned mind, they don't even know they have a divine mindset. They're going like, where is it? I had to build it by adding thoughts and realizing that these higher thoughts had a higher vibration, and they actually nurture and feed you, support you, love you, comfort you. And the other thoughts, make you feel bad and feel like you need to judge or have stress or have hatred or revenge or any of those other things. So becoming aware and conscious of these thoughts and energies that are inside of you is a huge step to giving yourself the power you want to be that sovereign person. Because you can think you're sovereign, but if you're like judging people, calling them out, being negative, all that kind of stuff, you could still be sovereign, but that's not the sovereignty of a divine human, I think. The divine human has full acceptance.
Well, and that when that happens, you can be conscious or consider yourself awake. But then it happens to all of us, whether a threat or a trigger or vibration of judgment or anger, frustration, whatever those negative feelings that we know don't feel good come up inside us about ourselves or someone else. That is this increasing light that you talked about, Renee, that is summoning that which is like itself to itself. And when that's coming up in us, it could be ours or could not be ours, but we're showing where we still have the vibrations inside us that can match somebody else's lower vibrational states or other versions of ourselves that we're not even conscious of, but it's taken up residence inside us. And we do inhabit some of that negativity. And that's also part of the discomfort of these times, is realizing where are we still carrying a kind of negative energy, negative thought patterns, negative debris inside us that will match to negative experiences. A lot of people listen to the news and they resonate with that negativity because it could be something from 5 lifetimes ago in that story that they're listening to. And a part of their energy field comes to alertness and wants to engage with that because they remember that frequency. They remember that energy in their own story some way. When you're further into the journey, you can recognize, why am I watching this show? Why do I have this channel on? Why am I listening to this music that doesn't make me feel good? If I actually slow down and listen to the words, what are they saying? Why am I listening to that? That's when we start to turn off some of those channels, release the things that don't serve us as we get more conscious. And we want to go outside, and I want to hang out with a red-tailed hawk, right? I want to go outside and hang out with the deer or just the trees and the wind and the sunshine, because that's a more accurate reflection than some things in my life that were just a routine in my life at the time, until, like you also said, Renee, I started building my world more as a conscious creator. And now everything I have around me, I love. Something about it brings me joy, right? And we can look in our backgrounds that, our listeners can also see in our houses where we are in our rooms. Jonathan, you've got books behind you. They obviously must mean something to you because they're there. I think you've got is that a crystal Buddha?
Yes. Yep.
Is that a quartz crystal Buddha?
It's a quartz. Yeah. I think so. I'm not sure if it's quartz. I'm not. Yeah.
Gorgeous. I mean, I when you came on this morning, I felt it right away. So I'm already tapped into the energy in your environment. I'm resonating with that, right? And Renee, you are always so, you've got the plants, you've got these earth tones around you, you have the elephant, and I know you have lots of other animal, creatures and statues in your house all over.
Yeah. We choose our environments very carefully once we realize that we have the options of creating what's around us and having the world mirror back to us what we want to be surrounding us, the frequencies we want to live in. There's a lot to that in feng shui as well, how things move throughout your house, how things are placed within the 4 directions, how energy moves and how it gets stuck. It could get stuck in certain areas if the house is built a certain way. Giving energy, giving life to structures like your house, seeing your house as a living, breathing structure, and speaking with the house. Say you want to do a renovation. We just renovated our bathroom downstairs, to have a conversation with the room before you start ripping open things and changing the structure of your house. I think it's asking permission and giving respect to everything as a living, breathing being around you, whether it's a piece of wood, vanity in your bathroom. Everything has an energy to it, and everything has a life vibration to it. And once we realize that, then we start interacting with it on a different level and co-creating with the environment around us, and we start seeing more synchronicities. We start seeing symbology, communication in the animals, symbology in the plants. Or you may have, maybe driving on the highway, you see a license plate and it has a moniker on it and it means something to you. It's like, once you start tapping in and you start asking for more, and you step up in that presence, and you're like, okay, I want to see more. Like, just keep these synchronicities coming, keep the messages coming. I am open. Just, you have to be willing and show the universe that you're open to receiving these divine gifts. And I think that's when things accelerate exponentially. And you start, like Renee said, you start stepping into that divine mindset of the universe is benevolent, the universe is abundant, there's messages everywhere, there's life everywhere. So I think
I think
that's,
yeah, I think it's
yeah.
acknowledging your presence of the omnipresence,
Right.
because we're not the totality of God, but like an ocean in the drop and the drop in the ocean. We are that. And when you connect to that and become aware that that's who you are. And when you were saying about choosing the things in your home, I've had things choose me. I've had rocks choose me. I've had a statue of a Black Panther that I was walking by and I just went, oh, you want to come home with me? Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a beautiful dance. And here we are doing this in the middle of this huge transition and conscious evolution. Well, not everybody is consciously evolving, but they're evolving whether they're conscious or not, because the light, you know, from what I understand about light, I mean, you can't run from the light. The light is ever present. And so you might as well just embrace it and appreciate it and have gratitude for it, because I've had a lot of very uncomfortable, painful moments, but in the middle of it, I could feel the comfort of the light and the spirit and the love. I knew it wasn't going to last forever. I knew it was just an energy moving on me to clear the decks, so to speak, get rid of stuff that isn't serving me, get rid of stuff I was co-creating that isn't in harmony with the divine love and light picture of things. So I think everyone is going through that, everyone. And I think about the animals. Yesterday, a friend of mine called. She was freaked out because a hummingbird got stuck in her house. And so she was trying everything. She put live flowers. She just did all kinds of stuff. Bless her heart. We called, and it was Sunday. So a lot of the sanctuaries, you know, bird rescues, they were closed or whatever. And so we prayed for that little critter and said, you know, we're trying. We don't know what to do and all that kind of stuff. So when I had a bocce ball game yesterday. So when I was playing bocce ball, you know, I was connecting to that little hummingbird. I was saying, I love you and I'm with her. If we could find a way to show you out, we would. But like, we're in this, you know, and you don't know the house and it's 2 stories and it's like, it's so, you know, communication. So I was concerned about that sweet hummingbird. And when I was playing bocce ball, a hummingbird showed up in the tree, flew around, and I immediately got that it was a message that the hummingbird is okay, no matter what happened.
Right.
Because it was like a message. How could it not be? It was just getting dark. And so here's this hummingbird. And that's totally received it as a message and gave thanks for it and said, that's cool. You know, and so that
answered prayer. I mean, in that way, that's how some of the answers to our prayers come. You know,
I know some people, it sounds really whatever, fill in the blank. But for me, having the awareness of that connection feeds my soul. It acknowledges the connection. It acknowledges my gratitude. I have stood in front of a flower before, having to get my glasses out so I can see it up close and just say, you are amazing. Those little stripes and those little this and that. And it's just, you're connecting to it. You're looking at it. You're acknowledging it. And actually I've had them say, so are you. So
Right.
it's not a one-way street.
No.
When you connect with that tree or that bug, they get it, because we're all connected. How could they not get it? And it's a beautiful thing, and it's awe-inspiring, and it's mind-boggling. I mean, I used to say, well, if I was God, I would set it up exactly like that. Look at that sunset, look at those flowers, look at the ocean. If I was God, I would do it exactly like that. You know, but, oh, guess what?
Yeah, there's a perfection to it. There's an innate intelligence there, and there's a communication back and forth, like you said. It's just opening your ears to hear. And put it, maybe putting on your spiritual glasses to see the patterns in the flowers, to really see that there is a perfection to everything around you. And when you acknowledge that and you give gratitude, you just open yourself up to seeing more of what is already perfect.
And I realized that the flower, it's not just me going, oh, you're so beautiful. The flower has an energy, a presence that's making me feel that because I choose to see it and connect with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's wild. Or a puppy that you're walking down the street and here comes a puppy, and it's like, it's because it's life and it's the expression of God. I mean, years and years ago, I heard this in my spirit. Everywhere you rest your eyes, you see God. Because all of it is consciousness, every bit of it. And the first time I realized that, I'm standing on the carpet. I'm not hurting you, am I? That's how silly it gets.
That is so something that an empath would say, right? Empaths would feel the carpet and think about its comfort level of the carpet, right?
Right. But then I got, no, I'm a carpet, and I'm a perfect being where I am, and you can't hurt me walking on me. So
messages are everywhere in our lives, and that's what, to use Flower Diamond's language, she's somebody who's been in some of our round tables. She talks about the mundane, the mind, and the muse. And when we can appreciate all of them, and if we want to equate, to give language to it, the mundane, we might equate to what people call 3D. It's just regular, everyday life that you have to see it to believe it, and that level of living. But the mind is the bridge between the mundane and then the muse, which is our higher dimensional selves, and the mind and the heart are kind of a bridge in there. And we access the muse. And in the muse, when we're in that bigger picture vision, we see the mundane, and the mundane comes to life in a more magical way, just like you just talked about with the hummingbird or the plants or the flowers or the carpet. That's how we choose to live, because we've awakened to ourselves and just begun to play in this world where we want to see a bigger picture. We are seeking the interconnection between all things. And until I had some of my awakening as an empath, I felt that connection with so many things, but I didn't have the language that helped me walk even deeper into that oneness, into that relationship with everything. And that's how, when I met each one of you, it's like I already knew you, right? We were reuniting and re-meeting, even though in the mundane, in the 3D world, we were strangers to each other, but not soul. Not at soul level were we strangers, right? And we started talking like this from day one, because we remember, but we play in the muse, we play in these higher dimensional frequencies, and we play in this way where we let ourselves know everything else. We let ourselves reunite and re-meet aspects of ourselves that are reflected in a flower, that are reflected in an animal totem. And maybe I thought we could segue for the other part of this podcast a little bit to talk about some of the recent transmission that came through for December, the energies of December 2021. There's always so many parcels of energy in these beautiful transmissions that are given to us, to all of us. And there's themes and threads of the emerging great awakening, right? There's themes and threads of living beyond time and this 3D matrix, living beyond the mundane, going beyond, bridging into bigger worlds and bigger picture vision. And there's also big messages about a third harbinger. So what came through the transmission when I finally channeled it was that they were twins. It was twin harbingers. I didn't see that one coming. What I felt coming was the boar. That came in a few weeks ago. I was feeling a boar, and people who know, I think, the biblical messages connecting to harbingers and source and these times, I heard some people say it's the bull, I think, right? It's the bull. But I wasn't seeing or getting messages about the bull. I was getting all these messages about the boar. And so Spirit surprised me when they brought them in together in a twin message, each with their own strengths and medicine for us in these times. And I think that's, even if there's there's probably been some prophetic biblical prophecies for these times, these harbingers. I'd love somebody who can explain all of that. I don't know if you guys can, but I'll just seed that into the conversation. That's a nuance to these times. Why wouldn't we want to have additional support, right? Additional messengers. And I think there's so many things that the guides relay so beautifully. So it's worth reading or hearing the transmission itself for people who are listening to this that haven't yet. Go tune into that. But inside the story of the boar, which is also akin to a pig, they brought through the story of the three little pigs, right? And the wolf who's coming to huff and puff and blow their house down. And there's also reference of the Grinch and how the Grinch stole Christmas, right? And I want to focus in specifically on those two stories for a minute, because I think there's a little bit of a language and conversation we might be able to seed in our listeners and people tuning into this right now, especially as the holidays kick up. And also we swirl in the energies of December as we round out a year and prepare for a new year of new beginnings, endings and beginnings, this in-between time. So when you have the three little pigs, and many of us know that classic tale, right? But essentially for someone who might not know that tale, there are these three little pigs, they're brothers, and they live with their mom, and their mom basically lets them know it's time for them to make their own way in the world. And they each go and they make their own houses. The first pig is excited because it quickly puts together a house of straw, very quick to build, and then have lots of time to play. And then the second pig, the second brother, builds his house out of sticks. Took a little bit longer than the straw built house, but he's pretty pleased with himself, and he also has time to dance and play, which makes him very happy. The third brother builds his house out of bricks. Takes a little more time, takes a little more blueprinting and planning and being more methodical and preparing and building that brick by brick to build a strong house. And then along comes a wolf that comes by the first pig's house, who made the house of straw, and he says his classic threat and his words, which is, let me in, right? Little pig, right? Or I'll blow your house down, right? And I'll huff and I'll puff and I'm going to blow your house down. And so the little pig is terrified, somehow must get out a back door of this little straw house and runs away from the wolf to his brother's house made of sticks. There they huddle together, and soon the wolf comes and finds them there too and says the same thing, right? Little pig, let me in. I'm going to huff and I'm going to puff and I'm going to blow your house down. And he has an intention of them being his dinner, right? They're pretty terrified. They somehow find a back door and they run around to their brother's house, who built his house out of bricks. And when they're inside the brick house, in that strong house, that wolf can threaten all he wants, but he's not very effectively blowing the house down. But he takes a minute and he regroups and he decides he's going to climb down the chimney and he's going to capture them and eat them that way. But they have another plan in mind, and they set a pot of boiling water that scalds his little back end, and he runs away, taught a lesson by these very smart, creative, powerful beings that were these pigs, and pigs, part of pigs' medicine, as we saw in the transmission, but a lot of people may know, they're very, very intelligent creatures, right? And then you have the metaphor of the wolf, who has dark intentions, right? This wolf is intending to end their lives, right? And to have them for dinner. And I think in the transmission, he's talking about, I will huff and I will puff and I will blow the truth down in our lives. We have the energy of some big bad wolves in our world right now. And we can see that there's so many ways for people to talk about this. There's people who like to deny these things and focus solely on the light. It's fine. Everybody is in their spectrum of experience right now. But I think we can look at this world, if all of us would be willing to sit together and say, is this the world we want to inhabit? Like you said, Renee, is this the vibrational world that I want to live in? Is this the creation that I want to participate in co-creating? Is having lots of big bad wolves who want to come and blow people's houses down and terrify them in some way and trigger fear, right? Lots of narratives about fear and experiences of fear. And I think the story of the three little pigs, it says so many things, and it talks about pig medicine is in there. But this is also a story of our time. There's people who may want to knock on our doors, literally on our houses, and bring some fear to our doorsteps. There's also messengers throughout our day of people who are triggered in narratives and feelings and their own triggers of fear. And they want to give that up to other people, right? They want to say, little pig, let me in. Let my negative energy come in to your experience, right? And let's co-create some more fear. I think we have an abundance, like fear. There's no scarcity of fear on the planet right now. That's something I want to talk about, because in the little pigs' awareness, them coming together made them strong. Number one, right? Their boar medicine, or that pig medicine, their intelligence, they didn't just give in to feeling trapped. They intuited and they listened for other solutions to the problem they were facing, which was this big bad wolf. And they went on, obviously, to co-create a solution, which left the wolf running away and not wanting to mess with them again. And they went on to live their lives, right? And to make their own way in the world. And there's a lot of messages here, but I just wanted to say, what comes up for you guys when you think about the world, you think about that story, you know, what comes through as a medicine for you, and maybe how you transcend the big bad wolves, or your, you know, how you meet clients or people in your life right now that have fear or issues and overwhelm. How do we find that strong house inside ourselves, right? And come together with other like-minded people? How are you experiencing that?
Renee, do you want to go first?
Go ahead. I'm thinking still.
Okay. No, I think there's definitely credence to strength in numbers and coming together in a collective vision, and really trying to be, you know, trying to think one step ahead. Like the first pig built the house of straw. The second one upgraded that version of the straw to a stick, but it was still in vain because both those houses got blown down. And it wasn't until the third pig saw far enough ahead, had that bigger picture vision, that eagle vision. I would even say, you know, bull vision, the bullseye. You know, you're looking at the bullseye. You're looking at that big reward in the middle, in the center. You're looking at the bigger picture, the bullseye. And I think in order to do that, you do have to daily commit yourself to this refinement process, this transmutational process, this alchemy that we walk through every day. There's so many different ways to do that, but it is, like we said before, reach out to one of us as a mentor. We can help guide you through this process. There's other people in your life that can help as well, to cultivate these tools and start seeing the bigger picture. But that's really the message that comes to me straight off, is to really methodically build a house out of brick, build it out of God's vision, out of the will of God, not the will of the human ego. Build it in the firmness of God's picture, because God's picture is the perfect picture for you, the perfect picture for humanity. It's not what we might have thought it was, or what others are telling us it may be. So that's what comes to me.
So yeah, I was thinking of the words in the transmission of preparedness. So the third pig, you know, thought about it, and he said, I'm going to prepare. And so I think that by way of preparation is using the tools we've been talking about, the breath and stuff like that, and being able to manage that energy as it comes to you, because we've all heard things that we don't like, and have, you know, desires for certain things to go away. And so the only thing you can do is be in charge of yourself and your energy. And along with doing those things we talked about, being in neutrality and accepting and allowing and surrendering. There's another part of that I didn't mention earlier, but I know we've all talked about it, and that is holding that vision, which is part of the being prepared, holding the vision of what we want and co-creating with other people all around the world. We're co-creating that vision of unity consciousness, of living in harmony and peace and love, and allowing people to be who they are. Because it's not 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 races. It's one race of human beings. And we have these beautiful diversities that we can celebrate, you know. And so I think that story was talking about the ways in which you prepare. Some of them work better than others. And that at being prepared, and the light will lead you. If you don't know, ask. If you don't know what's best for you, ask. Go inside and ask, because in your heart is where you are connected to the infinite wisdom and love and light of God's source, God, life source, all of it. And you will get the answers you need.
It's a great prayer, that show me, show me and lead me in the light. And these do not have to be extravagant, wordy prayers, right? They can literally be just what's in your heart to say. I know that many people, when I listen to them pray, I'm always so moved, because some people just go into almost like a channeling like state, and it's so beautiful. I know that when I connect with source and spirit, and certainly early on in my journey, it was very simple things like show me, right? I am open, show me, lead me in highest good, lead me in the light. And then allowing the don't know mind inside me to let spirit lead me in these ways. And yes, there are some big bad wolf energies on the planet, right? And so I think it's just important that you in your consciousness or your intention, that when you're saying show me, but you're feeling and asking to be shown the light, you're asking to be shown in, protected and guided by the light, in what is highest good for you. So when I say show me, I mean all those feelings, right? Show me what's highest good, show me the light, and protect me in the light while you are showing me.
And there's a verse in the Bible that says that if you don't know what to pray, the Holy Spirit will intervene for you. And there's times when I've said, I honestly don't know what to pray for, but you know my heart. My heart has the highest of intentions for myself and all of creation, leaving nothing out. And there's times when I've just like flat didn't know. And I just said, okay, take it away, Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I like to think of the Holy Spirit as the great mediator, the great bridge between your human self and your God presence, your connection with all. And there are times where you just have to, in humility, surrender it and say, I don't know. Right. I don't know, but I trust in you to assist me in working this puzzle out with me, and to show me the way, show me the light. If I don't know what the light is, don't allow me to be afraid of the light. That there's an immediate reaction a lot of times, because we've been in such an amnesia consciousness on this planet that the light is fearful. The light is fearful to a lot of people. They just don't. It's like being in a dark cave for 80 years. If you were to immediately emerge from a dark cave, there's a story. There's a well-known story. I forget the name of it, but it has to do with seeing shadows in a cave and emerging out of the cave and seeing the light. The immediate reaction after 80 years is this, and to run back into the cave.
Right.
But if people can start working with these tools, start working with the language, it makes them comfortable with the light in little increments, so that it's not overwhelming all at once.
Well,
and that's how source works. Yeah.
Right. I think the cave is the conditioned mind, and that the light is the divine mindset. And so the light has all the answers, but if you don't have a frame of reference, and you don't, I learned when I was learning about the conditioned mind and the ego mindset, that a lot of times a new thought would come into your head and it races around to look for its place. Where is it going to live? What's already in your mind that can accept that new thought? And most of the time, if you can't find a place, it's not going to make sense because you don't have a frame of reference, because maybe it's a higher vibrational thought or a new way of looking at things. And you just, most of the time, people just kick it out and don't give it a second thought. And I think the reason why we're where we're at is because a lot of times we gave things a second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth thoughts and carried on and ended up embracing the new light and the new knowledge and the new wisdom that you allowed, because you said, is that true?
Yeah, it may have taken 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times in my stubbornness.
Yeah.
But yeah, it finds a place in the mind eventually. These open, yeah.
It serves everyone to look at each new thought that comes in, look things up and whatever, and then you can always dismiss it, but you don't know what you don't know. And I think you're treading on dangerous ground when you can just pass judgment on stuff. A lot of the misinformation is going on. Yeah. I've heard people say, oh, that's not true. Well, as Marie once said, not everyone is skilled at doing research.
Yes.
And you need to research because you're a creator. And so how do you know you want to keep creating that if it's like causing harm over here? Maybe you don't want to do that. So you have to look at everything, because you are responsible for everything that comes from you. Every thought, every breath, every action, every deed, every emotion is attached to you. It's not attached to anyone else. So something happens, it's like it's recorded forever. So you want to become a conscious creator and give yourself the luxury of thinking about what's in front of you, the situation, the thoughts, the person, the job. You want to be conscious about what you're going to create and co-create, because you're it. There's, the buck stops here. There's nobody behind. Well, there's spirit behind you.
Right.
So
it's so powerful when we talk about researching and giving yourself permission to look a little deeper and to engage some curiosity about things. And what I found is when I was getting curious and I was looking deeper and I was waking up a little bit at a time in the beginning, in this language that I have now, as I was expanding my little picture, I was expanding all that I could see this much, which I talk about a lot in the Marinades messages. But if this is all you see, if we were born with glasses like attached to our faces that were in like a rectangle box and everybody wore them, you would think that that's all that the world is.
Well, and that's coming. Look at what's going on now with just being released. I'm not going to say names, but where people are wearing glasses and they're going into an alternate reality. They're going deeper into the matrix. They don't even realize that it's a trap. They're digging themselves deeper into a trap. These things, we really need to step back and say, yeah, like investors, they're looking, I can make money on this big thing that's coming out. It's going to be huge. Technology is huge. It could really benefit me, my family. But what are you buying into? Where are you pushing society? What direction are we going in? Are we going towards enlightenment and ascension, or are we going back? Are we trying to go backwards? Are we trying to go down
and devolve further? Right.
You really have to step back, take those conscious breaths, and really connect and say, what is the true intention behind the things that I'm exposed to, or the things that I could possibly buy into or become a part of? Like, really, you have to use discernment. Discernment is, when I started my journey 5 or 6 years ago, when I started getting messages myself and really asking the questions, the answer was very clear in the beginning, is discernment is going to be your #1 ally in your journey. You have to question everything. You can't just take everything at face value.
Right.
And you become an explorer when that happens. And I think you talked about that refinement process, Jonathan, that purification process in its own way. I think in my own life, as I became more of a conscious adult, but a conscious creator in my life, I started to listen to things, and we've probably talked about this on other podcasts, and we will again, I'm sure. But in this awakening process, I started looking at the ingredients in the food of things I was buying. That was one way that I got curious. I never looked before. You assume if it's, approved by the government or the FDA or whatever governing body, it must be fit for consumption. No, not necessarily. You can look at those ingredients and they're not good for human consumption at all. But they got a little red, they got their stamp that they needed to be on that shelf. And I started to realize, oh, I don't want to buy things with those things in it. And I started to read more and more labels, and I started looking at my cleaning supplies, and I started looking at the products that I use, my shampoos, my, different personal care products. That's why you can do it in the doses that are right for you. Some of us go through big catalyzing experiences where our world is blown wide open, right? And we go through what we would call trauma or a kind of tragedy, but it also tears down all the walls that we built for ourselves, like that first little pig went through the trauma of its little straw house being blown to smithereens, right? There were gifts in that for that pig. And that pig had to learn other preparedness skills, which was community, strength in numbers, right? Co-creating with others who had built better, right, than they had, but learning in that process. And that's us.
When you're living in the big picture, you have to realize that you may not have all of the big picture, because Spirit gave me this beautiful analogy when my son was 9 years old and he came home from school and was going blah, 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 blah. And I realized that I could explain it to him from the big picture, but he just has a little picture. So I said, Randy, this is you at 9 years old. This is how big your picture is. This is how big my picture is. So you're here and you're looking, you can see this piece and that piece through your little picture. You can see little pieces of the picture, but you can't see the whole picture because you're only 9 years old. You've only been on the planet for 9 years. And so your picture grows and expands. And so that's the awareness that I carry. I know I'm living in the big picture, but I know also that there's a lot of stuff I don't know. And so I am aware. That's why I allow things to come to me and then ask and stop still doing the question everything and use the tools for discernment and before you anchor it inside yourself. So
I think that's a hugely critical place to be in when you can humble yourself. And this is from one of my favorite books, A Course in Miracles.
Oh,
it's themed throughout the book. I know nothing. I know nothing is like one of those mindsets that if you can get yourself into, you open yourself up exponentially to knowing more, right, to welcoming in more, to magnetizing more, and to humble yourself and say, there's a lot that I don't know. I may know something about this, I may know something about that, but there's a lot that we don't know. There's 99.999% of the universe that we just don't know about the workings of the creator God, creation. Yes.
And so with that, I wanted to just, as we round this out today, I wanted to also talk a little bit about the story of how the Grinch stole Christmas, right? And regardless of religion or regardless of, whether we're attracted to these particular stories or not, there's something in the themes and the messages. If we get curious, if we dig a little deeper, there's something in all of them for us. And the layers of these stories never cease to amaze me, because when the guides bring them up, I'm always like, wow, I just hadn't thought about it that way, right? I just hadn't looked deeper into that. And when they shared in this most recent transmission for December 2021, how the Grinch stole Christmas, and the Grinch, for people that don't know, is some kind of made up character who lives in a cave on a mountain peak high above a little village of the Who's in Whoville. And every Christmas, they celebrate with great festivity their Christmas celebration, and they give gifts and they have big feasts and they sing and they're happy. It's a joyful time of year for them. And it just makes him more and more miserable just thinking about how happy they are. So he comes up with this plan of how he is going to take their happiness, basically, right? He's going to steal happiness from Christmas, and he's going to shut down the celebration. And he concocts this plan that he's going to go and slither in to each one of it through their chimneys. And instead of bringing them presents, he's going to steal everything from their houses, every last bit of joy, every last piece of tinsel and light that exists there. And he succeeds. He loads up his big sleigh and gets back up the mountain before they wake up. And he's expecting to hear them crying or sobbing or some, expression of distress of what he had just created. He could just stole their happiness. He just stole the joy of the season and their celebration and all that was in their hearts. But they're out there first thing in the morning singing like they always sing, right? Singing the joy of the season. And it goes on. You can feel the energy that they give in the transmission, but they still are singing. The joy is still there. It wasn't wrapped up in the present. It wasn't the feast. It wasn't necessarily the food. It was their connection. It was their song that they had always sung that was timeless. That was the present. That was the gift inside them. And we've heard this when people really listen to language, how we have presence, which is our consciousness inside us, often coming from our heart's consciousness and our higher selves, our presence. And then presents with a TS, right? Gifts that people give to each other for holidays and birthdays and things. But truly the Who's in Whoville are singing. This has just happened to them. Somebody like a big bad wolf in the form of a Grinch did invade their homes, right? And he did take things that probably were very special to them, but they kept their focus and their eye on the prize. And the prize is their joy. The prize is their centeredness. It's that neutrality, but it's also that heart consciousness, and it's their community. And they sang that song. And I think his heart melts and grows like 5 times that day. And I think, does it even happen? Do the Who's invite him to join them and partake in the roast feast? Something like that. So this is also a part of our time that in the pandemic, the impacts of this last couple of years, all the fear that has been kind of like a runaway train in our world, people have had to discipline their focus in a way like those Who's, right? That they organically and must have, we're going to give a lot of credit to the Who's. I don't know if it was shown in the story, but we're going to take a leap here, that they had spiritual practices, that they had a practice of cultivating their heart connection, that when things like that and a Grinch sweeps into your life, it doesn't rock your world because your gifts, your presence is your present, right? And they illustrate that to us in the deeper layers of that story. And aren't we called to find that Who? We're the Who we're looking for. It's us, inside us. Who are we? Who we truly are. That story illustrates us at least being summoned to look deeper and to get curious about who we are beyond the stress and overwhelm that many people are feeling, to look into finding community and kind of a sense of their tribe, people finding their tribe, their people, of people who are growing maybe at a similar pace and in a similar way as you. There are, we're all meant to come together with more people, and we're not meant to be alone. You saw that in the Little Pig story. You see that in the Who's. They come together against that foe or that adversary or that energy or that negativity, whatever it is. And that is another source of strengthening that's happening inside us for those that are aware and are willing to do the discipline to pay attention to what no longer serves us, including our own complaining and the negative vibrations. That it's right there. We can all complain all the time, and there's lots of reasons to be complaining on planet Earth in 2021. But we can also, if we hear this call and we hear this language and this invitation to see bigger, to grow your vision, is complaining and the lack and the fear and the scarcity that some people are feeling right now, is that the world that people want to inhabit? Or do they want to find this cultivation like the Who's must have cultivated to sing when everything seemed to have been taken from them? This last couple of years, people might say everything was taken from me, right? Loved ones, jobs, maybe even their sense of safety and security or sanity. And when we look at that, we can say, how can I show up and have that kind of centeredness, that peace and grace inside myself, that they could still sing, even though, and the Grinch says that, and he's like, but I took everything, but I even took this. And he can't get his mind around it because he thought for sure that would make them suffer.
Well, didn't they all ended up getting everything back?
I think he does bring it back, right?
I think everyone got everything back and everything was better. And that's where we're at. We're having stuff taken away, but we also have the hope that we're going to get everything back, only better. That we're going to get more because we're leaving behind a paradigm of consciousness that was only serving a handful of people, and moving into the age of Aquarius, the age of love and unity consciousness. So the story, yeah, they went through that, and you see that there's a lot of people, they're still being good and still being giving and stuff when they've lost everything. And so it parallels that story too, but it's going to get better, and it's going to be, you know, and people go, how could you say that? It's going to get better. Well, because I'm co-creating it, because I'm holding that vision, because I believe we were meant to live in a better way. And I can't help that feeling. It comes from my heart. So I carry that and I hold that. And that's part of what we do as whatever you conscious creators or whatever you want to call us. That not only do we go to neutrality and accept and surrender and do all those, breathe, do all those things, but we're holding that vision because we know we're co-creating it. And you run into people like each other, and we know we're co-creating it together. Yes. And we don't see each other because we don't live in the same city. We just see each other here or whenever we communicate. But we're not alone. There's so many people that are, you know they have that inside of them. I call it a God-shaped vacuum.
Yes.
That only God can fill, and that desire to have things be better is innate in us. It's innate. And so that's what keeps a lot of people going. And we lift each other up because it takes a village. And there's a lot of people doing great and wonderful and beautiful things on an everyday basis. That shows the strength and the makeup of the human psyche and the human spirit.
Yeah, and there's so much good being done, but it's not on your mainstream media. It's not being shown to you. Where instead we're being fed fear every day, and it's how you align vibrationally and to know that you are connected with a community of like-minded, like-hearted individuals, and to hold that univision, the vision of one, the vision of peace, the vision of unity consciousness, and to not subscribe to something that's gonna bring us in a direction that we don't want to go in, to hold that picture of the golden age, the age of Aquarius.
And I think we already did that in our consciousness. I mean, what about the harmonic convergence in 1987?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
August 1987. I mean, of course, when I heard the consciousness of mankind was measured, who does that? I don't even get how they do that, but I accept. And and when they said on this date at this time, and I've even had times when I was on the airplane, I used to be a flight attendant, and they said, at this time, you just take 5 minutes and focus. And I was in the middle of a service, and I go, I have to go in the bathroom, I'll be back. I'm in there doing my thing because I believed that we were co-creating this together. So we already did it in consciousness. Now we're just seeing the play out.
Yes.
It's like being accepting of what's already coming through the higher dimensions, what we're co-creating in the different dimensions of higher consciousness. Is really just accepting it into our reality. Like there is truly nothing we need to do physically. Like doing implies like you need to like have an action and just be totally keep going with your actions. But no, it's really aligning and acceptance and being open to yourself as being a multidimensional being and being a co-creator and knowing that these things come through through a higher intelligence, I think.
And be who you are. And I remember I told Marie that when I was younger, I got this very clear message that, you know, we're evolving, yes, but it's more, it's never happened. How do I know that? I can't prove it, but we are not only have evolved our consciousness, we're evolving the body so it can carry the full light of the Christ consciousness in our physical bodies. So it's no wonder that you're, you know, doing this most of the time. But, and so, I mean, I think that's totally awesome. I mean, Jesus said, you think these works that I'm doing are amazing, you're going to be doing even greater works than that. Jesus modeled what it's like to be a full divine human, and we are being evolved into that dimensional divine human that's way more than what we can imagine right now. I mean, I imagine it, but I'm sure I don't imagine all of it. Show me.
It's a much bigger picture vision. And I think so beautiful what you both just expressed. And as I think about those characters, just think about the characters in your films, the characters on your news stations. Who's talking about much smaller pictures, that there's only one way, that if this doesn't happen, that's it, it's doomsday for everybody. It's just pulling us into the myopia that wants to get us, like you said, Jonathan, with those glasses where people are already looking. You know, my goal isn't to go further into some kind of glasses that takes me into a false reality. I want to get these off. So I stopped wearing the contacts. I've been telling my eye doctor for years, I'm going to come in here and I already see myself with perfect vision. I have no idea how that's going to manifest, whether that's med beds, a spontaneous healing, many things. And I say, show me the perfect physical vision, right? Or better than 20/20 vision. I'm open, right? That's what I'm willing to say. And when we think about these things, we need this clear vision to get curious, to look deeper at where our vision is kind of tunnel visioned. And you can look at characters that are shown in all of our storybooks or our movies. When I just think about the Three Little Pigs and the Grinch, who's living expansively? Who's living in bigger picture visions, right? I think the mom had to have a bigger picture vision for her three little pig children to say, it's time for you to make your own way in the world. The mom seeds that in her kids. Then the kids go out, and the first one had a smaller picture vision, because it was focused on playing and not working. So it built the quickest house it could build because that was its focus. But that was a limited vision. It wasn't thinking of lots of other things that could happen and the kind of house you might really want. And then the second one with the sticks, a little bit of a bigger picture vision, but not fully focused on a strong, multi-dimensional house that it needed to be building. And then the third one was thinking at least deeper into preparedness and building strong and building for different conditions and different experiences. And that is the one that upheld them through that experience and helped them transcend.
Yeah. And that brick house was built and it housed all three of them. The two that were out of their houses were secure in the sanctuary of the brick house. So if we all come together in that mindset, like brothers and sisters helping brothers and sisters, whether it's access to clean water, food, medical, everything that people need to live a healthy and connected life, vibrant life, connected with nature, to get out of this, myopic vision of the goggles, get out of false realities and connect with what's truly there for all of us to share. And If we each hold that vision with our hearts open, it will arrive.
Right.
I agree. And the spirit gave me a great analogy is which soup pot are you putting your energy into?
Yeah.
You've got the negative, things are getting worse. It's less than, I can't do this. We have no choice. We have to follow the leader. Or the love, and that's fear, or the love and holding the vision and doing the right thing and being that part of the village that helps people. And so you have a choice of which soup pot you're going to put your energy into. And it makes it pretty simple because you have the ego conditioned mindset, which is, it's only that mind is only designed to recognize thoughts that it has recognized before. That's why it's so easy for it to kick out thoughts that, that might be new, that might be helping you, that spirit is actually going, hello, listen to this. And so the soup pot thing, and if people watch the news, they just keep buying into that fear and they don't question it.
Well, like all that we're talking about, and then inviting people who are tuning into a podcast like this to pay attention to the animals that fly or crawl or visit you in your experience. And it can be an animal on the picture of a cover of a book or a CD album or whatever it might be. They come, they will find you, right? They will show up. And especially if you say, show me the higher vibrational messages of animal medicine and how this can support me. Show me how those harbingers are going to be relevant to me at all in these times, right? And how can I, at a feeling level, connect with them in my heart and not just look for that prove it energy of the ego of like, how are you connected to that lion? Or what are they talking about, this ego business, right? Because the ego will do that. The ego will do that. And it will try and throw out these messengers and say, there's nothing to see here, because it doesn't want bigger picture vision, because out there is where everything is scary. The ego wants to keep you in that small vision because at least that's its perception of where it can keep you safe. And it is trying to help us and keep us safe, but it's got that astigmatism. It's the ego that carries the astigmatism. And we can't possibly see our world clearly if we're looking through those foggy lenses, right? And that small picture vision. So I, for one, continue to embrace and open to these experiences of how nature is communicating to me. It's one of the easiest ways for Mother Earth, who's a living, breathing, amazing, expansive, sentient being. How is she communicating with me? Right? And the same thing with source energy. They can have that hummingbird fly through your experience, Renee, to give you some reassurance that whatever it is, the outcome will be highest good. Right? Because that was your prayer you were asking. And then there was the echo. There was the answered prayer that came as soon as you asked, right? But people have to be open to receiving it. And each of us is and can be an open receiver. Yeah. So I want to thank you guys for your amazing reflections. These, like, straight from the heart. That's what these podcasts are, straight from the heart, streamed in the moment, just with our authentic selves. And the things that we valued in our experiences that we want to share with our listeners. So thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Renee, for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you. Good to see you both.
It is good to see you, and we will be back again. We, of course, will continue to share these inspiring messages. I invite people to find more of these podcasts and the transmissions. You can check out the text of those transmissions and these positive messages at frequencywriter.com and at wholesoulmastery.com. And you can find many of these podcasts on your favorite social media platforms, mostly if you search Whole Soul Mastery. And so thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you next time for another amazing podcast here at Whole Soul Mastery. We'll talk to you soon. Blessings.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.